Hi folks, this is all the fruit, and this video is for the real fruit nerds among you. This is the second part of the foreign immigrant workers' gardens in the Mannheim city port. When I saw those gardens, I noticed immediately that they are not gardens of Germans, because they look pretty similar, but also they are very different from normal gardens in Germany. When you look at the number of fig trees or the amount of exotic fruit trees for Germany, this is quite unusual. And I think here we can find some species and especially some varieties which are not so typical for Germany. Well, those cheap houses in the Mannheim harbor, usually nowadays most Germans don't want to live here even if they work in the harbor, so they're mostly inhabited by foreigners. Mostly from Mediterranean countries like Turkey, Spain, Greece, Italy and so on. And you can see this immediately in the gardens. Let's look at this here. A nice kaki. Well, you can find them in German gardens, but they are quite unusual, they are quite rare. And it seems it had too many fruit and dropped most of them. Some pear. Quite typical for, well, basically everywhere in Europe and the Mediterranean. Quinces, still kind of typical for warmer areas in Germany, but even more typical for the Mediterranean. Tomatoes, grown without protection, that's more typical for the Mediterranean. Most Germans would put some sort of greenhouse over them. Here some figs. The fig varieties around here are quite interesting. Also this shady pergola-like structure over the walkways is quite typical for the Mediterranean. And I don't say it's untypical for Germany, but in the Mediterranean you like to have some shade over your head when you walk around in summer. Eggplants growing over there, also rather a Mediterranean thing. Cherries, you can find them everywhere in Europe. Over there, quite a large mulberry tree. There were already some on the other side, and also kaki plums. Here's some quite unusual fig tree. It doesn't look like any of the fig varieties you can buy in Germany. And when I checked it, look at that. This thing is male. See the stamens everywhere. So those figs will never be edible. Funny why they brought it here. Because they thought you need a male tree to pollinate the female trees. Well, they'll be in trouble because there are no fig wasps in Germany, or maybe for some other reason, I don't know. Apricots, well, more typical of the Mediterranean than Germany. Here again the tomatoes grown without any protection. Artichokes, also more typical of the Mediterranean. Again in this garden, eggplants. Each garden has eggplants, tomatoes and peppers, and a lot of tomatoes. A lot more than I think would be typical for German gardens, but the most prevalent thing is the number of fig and mulberry trees. Oh, here's some cucumbers which don't look so German. The Germans have mostly the snake cucumbers, but those are rather the cucumbers we have in Bulgaria or Turkey or Russia. Here another fig tree. Some wild bryony or white bryony. The next fig tree already. And here the second big laurel cherry tree. Those are quite typical for the Caucasus and also some parts of the Balkans. And here the figs, they don't seem to be some typical German varieties. Also, lots of broad beans everywhere, which are grown on such structures. The Germans, they have more typical the bush beans, which I can see back there, but lots of broad beans here. An apple tree, behind the apple tree, a pear tree, behind it two fig trees, but also two laurel cherries. Those people could be from Turkey, or they like evergreen stuff. Lot of grape varieties which are not so typical for Germany, but here right now I haven't seen any of the really typical varieties. And since this is Germany, there is of course some organization which rules those 20 or 25 gardens of Turkish people. And yeah, because most of them are Turkish, you can see here the announcements, the official announcement is written in German and in Turkish, and the boss of this garden, of this garden patch, of this cluster of gardens is also Turkish. Here another fig tree, also this custom of painting the lower parts of the trees with lime to save them from pests is also quite typical for Bulgaria, Turkey and such areas. So if you needed some proof, you can see the boss who has been selected as the boss of this garden colony, garden community is Turkish, and everything is written in German and Turkish because most of the members are probably Turkish. Yeah, here you can see more kakis, figs, and yeah, more laurel cherries. And this one is a variety with quite huge fruit. I don't know if you can see them. So maybe, I know that in the Caucasus there are cultivars which are considered edible, more edible than the wild ones. Would be really interesting to try them. Yeah, here another mulberry tree, and back then more figs and kakis. And yeah, also more peppers and more eggplants than you would typically see in a German garden. Well, here are the German type snake cucumbers, but over there we had also the Oriental cucumbers. Well, pity I cannot go in there, but I don't want to disturb the people around here. Very interesting for me to look at those gardens. And this is another fig variety, which is not really one of the common ones here. Look, really teeny tiny figs, but this time, yeah, they seem to be sweet, so they're, yeah, definitely female figs, but quite untypical. I don't think that anybody would sell such a tiny fig variety. I don't think they are official fig varieties which are so small in Germany. Yeah, here are the quinces. Yeah, already 3 big evergreen laurel cherry trees. I think this might be this famous edible cultivar which I've never encountered before. So folks, this was some predominantly Turkish garden colony in the city harbor of Mannheim, with quite interesting fig varieties and other features more typical of a Mediterranean or Eastern garden. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful city of Mannheim. And don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.